My name is Ezra, and this is the part of my story most people don't believe. Maybe because it's too painful, too cruel, too cold, but it happened. I was thrown away not metaphorically, literally. It was a freezing night in November. I was 3 years old, a child, helpless, small. My left leg wasn't fully formed, a birth defect the doctors called congenital limb deficiency. My mother called it a curse. She didn't cry when she did it. I remember the scratch of the burlap sack she stuffed me in. How she whispered, "I'm sorry," like a guilty thief, and then walked away like I was nothing. She didn't slam a door. She didn't scream. She just walked away. I don't remember her face clearly, but I remember the boots she wore. Black leather, scratched up, and one of them had a broken zipper. Those boots stayed in my nightmares for years. She left me behind a dumpster outside street. Agnes Orphanage, but she didn't ring the bell. She just left. The cold that night wasn't just physical. It wrapped around me like silence, like death. The stars blinked above me, indifferent, and for a long time. I didn't cry. I just lay there, trying to understand why. It wasn't one of the nuns who found me. It wasn't even someone from the orphanage. It was Miriam. She was walking back from the night market, a bag of tomatoes swinging from her arm and a blue scarf tied around her head. That scarf became my earliest symbol of safety. She heard a whimper, a child's whimper. She followed it. She thought maybe it was a puppy. What she found instead was a half-frozen, limp little boy with stiff fingers, purple lips, and a swollen leg that didn't look quite right. She didn't hesitate. She didn't ask who I belonged to. She just wrapped me in her scarf, left her groceries on the sidewalk, and ran. Miriam wasn't rich. She wasn't educated. She was a widow with 2 jobs and 1 bedroom to her name. But she had something more powerful than wealth. She had heart. The doctors said I had frostbite and mild hypothermia. My leg needed treatment. Miriam didn't flinch. She signed every form, agreed to every responsibility. And when they asked if she was family, she said, "I am now." She named me Ezra. "It means help or helper," she said, stroking my cheeks as I lay in that hospital bed. "Because someday you'll help more people than you know." And I believed her, even when I didn't understand the words. I didn't grow up in luxury. I wore second-hand clothes and sometimes ate soup made from nothing but bones and onions. But I had love. Miriam never made me feel less, never. Even when I limped. Even when other kids pointed at my leg. Even when I screamed in frustration because I couldn't run fast like them. She'd look at me and say, "You're not broken. Ezra, you're built different." That phrase, it stuck. It became my armor, my sword, my silent chant when life got cruel. School was war. I remember a boy named Dev and who used to imitate my limp on the playground, making everyone laugh. I used to cry in the bathroom stall and stuff tissues in my mouth so no one would hear. But Miriam every single time would pull me into her lap, rub my back, and whisper stories about ancient kings who were born with crooked spines and still ruled empires. They said he wouldn't be king, she whispered, but he didn't need their approval. He had his purpose. Sometimes I believed her. Sometimes I didn't, but I never doubted her love. And when I couldn't sleep, she'd sing to me in a voice so soft it sounded like wind. She didn't just raise me. She healed me. I was 10 when I first took apart the old standing fan in our apartment. Miriam nearly had a heart attack when she walked in and saw the pieces scattered across the floor. "Ezra," she gasped. "That was the only fan we had." "I'm fixing it," I said quietly, not even looking up. She wanted to scold me, I could tell. But instead, she sat and watched me. 45 minutes later, the fan roared to life, louder, faster, better. That was the day she realized I wasn't just curious. I had something in my hands, something gifted. From that day on, she brought me every broken thing she could find from the neighbors' radios. Blenders, alarm clocks. I'd fix them, upgrade them, even redesign them. Miriam worked extra shifts to buy me a second-hand computer. When it broke, I didn't cry. I took it apart and learned how every part worked. By 12, I was coding. By 13, I was designing. By 14, I had built a rudimentary prosthetic leg prototype from bicycle parts and wires. I didn't care that I was disabled. I wasn't trying to run anymore. I was building wings. By the time I turned 16, I had built a prosthetic leg that worked with muscle signals from my thigh. It wasn't perfect, it buzzed and clanked, but it allowed me to walk straighter, faster, and with less pain. That invention changed everything. I submitted the design to the National Science Youth Expo. Miriam and I couldn't afford the trip to the finals in D.C., so our neighbors pooled money to buy our tickets. She sat in the audience, wearing that same blue scarf from the night she found me. I remember when they called my name as the national winner. I stood frozen on the stage, clutching the microphone. Flashbulbs popped. People rose to their feet. Miriam cried the whole time I gave my speech. The judges cried. People clapped for so long. I had to hobble off stage before they'd stop. By 18, I had a full scholarship to a top engineering school. By 23, I had started a biotech company in prosthetics and wearable assistive tech. We called it Built Different. The same words Miriam had whispered into my broken nights. We started small, but within 5 years, our designs were being used in hospitals across the country. Government contracts came. International clients followed. Veterans, children, elderly patients. We were giving people their lives back. At 28, I was featured on Forbes 30 Under 30. I bought Miriam a house. She said, "You've done enough. I just wanted you to be happy." But I wasn't, not fully, because shadows don't vanish with money. They follow you even into light. It began with a letter, no return address. It was handwritten, barely legible. "Ezra, I saw you on EV. I didn't know what I was doing when I let you go. I was scared. I was alone. Please forgive me. I want to see you. I'm your mother." I stared at that letter for hours. My hands shook. I had dreamed of this moment and dreaded it in equal measure. For weeks I told no one, not even Miriam. Then the calls started. Different numbers, same message. One woman claimed to be my cousin. Another said she was my aunt. One even sent a photo of me as a baby as proof. How did they even have that? I didn't know what to do. Then one night, outside my company headquarters, a woman was waiting. She was older, worn, hair graying, and hunched with age, but I recognized her. The boots. Those same black leather boots. "Ezra," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's me, your mother." She cried the entire meeting. We sat in the back of a quiet cafe downtown, where no one would recognize either of us. Her hair was thinner than I expected, pulled back into a bun with fading brown eye trying to hide the gray. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of a napkin, shredding it into tiny flakes. "I was young," she said again. 17. I didn't know what I was doing. Your father was long gone before you were born. My parents said they were ashamed of me. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't just give you up at birth. I sat motionless across from her, my coffee growing cold. She stared at it with guilt dancing in her eyes, as if the sight of me whole, grown, successful was too much to comprehend. "They said you were cursed," she whispered. "They said you drew end my life." I believed them. I waited, silent. I tried, Ezra. I did, but you were always crying. You had so many medical needs. The bills were piling. I was drowning. I didn't know where to turn. Her voice cracked. I thought you'd be better off without me. I wanted to believe her. I truly did. Her story had the notes of truth, teenage mother, poverty, fear. I even felt a flicker of sympathy. But something deep in me, a child's instinct, screamed that this wasn't the whole story. I walked out of that cafe with her tears still clinging to the fabric of my sleeves. But I didn't answer her request to see me again. Not yet. I needed time. I needed proof. Back at my office, I called Anthony, my security lead, discreet and thorough. He'd worked with top-level intelligence agencies before joining my team. I need a private investigator. I told him, top of the line, quiet and fast. He didn't ask why. 2 weeks later, I had answers. And they shattered everything I thought I knew. Yes, she had been 17. Yes, my father had left, but her parents, my grandparents, hadn't abandoned her. They had paid her. There was a trust fund set up the week I was born. A large one, enough for private health care, enough for surgeries, physical therapy, adaptive tools, enough to ensure I would grow with dignity. But by the time I turned 4, the account was empty, every cent withdrawn by her. She hadn't abandoned me out of desperation. She had been paid to forget me, to walk away, to pretend I never existed. Receipts, bank statements, transaction logs, flight itineraries. She flew to Miami the morning after she dropped me off like trash. She didn't cry back then. She didn't look back. She moved into a luxury apartment in Coral Gables for 3 years. She dated men, took spot rips, opened a boutique with the money she got for me. When that money ran out, she moved back to the city. And then a silence. For over 2 decades, she said nothing. Until I was on television. Until the money came back, not for her this time, but for me. I read every page of the report with shaking hands. My prosthetic leg buzzed faintly, humming with tension beneath the desk. The same leg she had called a curse had now made me millions, and that was when she came crawling. I stared at the final photo in the file, her in a shopping mall, holding a luxury handbag, smiling. It wasn't guilt that brought her back. It was greed. And she wasn't the only one. I started receiving messages from people claiming to be my cousins, uncles, half-siblings. One even showed up at a conference where I was speaking, pretending to be a childhood friend until security escorted him out. They had all smelled the money, the fame, the success, but not one of them had shown up when I was 8 years old and needed a new brace we couldn't afford. Not one had helped when Miriam had to sell her wedding ring to pay for my surgery. Not one. And now they wanted in? No, I wasn't that boy anymore. I was the man he had become, and I wasn't going to let the past consume the future I'd built, not without a reckoning. The sun was setting when I arrived at the small event hall they had rented. Yes, rented, for a family reunion. One I hadn't agreed to attend. One they had the audacity to plan without me. There was a banner at the entrance, "Welcome home, Ezra." I stood outside for a long minute, debating whether to turn away, but I had made my choice. I stepped inside. There were tables set up with food I didn't recognize, decorations in my company's colors, and even a cake shaped like one of my prosthetic designs. People turned, smiled, applauded. A woman I've vaguely remembered as one of the aunts rushed forward to hug me. I didn't move. "I appreciate the effort," I said, my voice like ice, "but let's not pretend we're something we're not." The room went quiet. My mother, no, the woman who gave birth to me, stood up slowly. "Ezra, please. We just want to reconnect. Let the past stay in the past." I stepped forward. "You want the past to stay buried because it's ugly. Because you sold your own child. Because you chose money over motherhood?" Her face went pale. "I have the receipts, the documents, the withdrawals. The investigators report. You left me behind a dumpster. Not because you had no choice, but because you had options. A man at the back, one of my supposed uncles, muttered. That's not fair. She was a kid. I was a child, I snapped. A disabled child. Left to die in the cold. And none of you came looking. I turned to face them all. You weren't there when I couldn't walk. You weren't there when I cried myself to sleep. You weren't there when I begged God to tell me why I wasn't good enough. Silence. I didn't need you then. I don't need you now. I looked at the banner, the cake. The grinning faces now twisted in shame. You know who was there, Miriam. The woman who had no reason to love me but did. Who sacrificed meals, sleep, and comfort so I could thrive. She never once called me broken. She never once walked away. I pulled out my wallet and placed a photo of Miriam on the table. This is my mother. You're just ghosts. Shadows. And I'm not haunted anymore. I walked out. I didn't look back. Outside, the night air was crisp. A single star hung low in the sky. I took a deep breath. My chest felt lighter. I had faced them, and I had chosen peace over poison. I drove home to Miriam's house, the house I bought for her. She was waiting on the porch with tea and a blanket. She opened her arms. Did you do what you needed to do? She asked. I nodded, burying myself in her embrace. They're gone, I whispered. She kissed my forehead. Good, she said, because they don't deserve you. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from them again. I assumed they had gone back into their holes, shamed and exposed. But then the letter came. This time it was from a lawyer. They were suing me. Emotional damages, breach of promise, defamation. They claimed I had publicly humiliated my biological family, that I owed them a share of my company's success for the genetic foundation they gave me. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so deeply insulting. My board was concerned. This could cause a PR issue. One advisor said, you should settle quietly. But I refused. I released a public letter instead. In it, I told the world the truth. From the alley, the frostbite, the burlap sack, the cold night when love died and a stranger saved me. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The story resonated across the globe. Emails flooded in, survivors, adopted children, parents of disabled kids, veterans who wore my prosthetics with pride. One letter stood out. It was from a woman in South Africa whose daughter was born without a leg. She said my story gave her hope, that her child now walks with one of my designs. That's when I knew. The final choice wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about courtrooms or settlements. It was about legacy. I dropped the countersuit. I instructed my legal team to respond with one sentence. Ezraman, Roe owes you nothing. And we left it there. I returned home to Miriam, and we sat on the porch together, looking up at the sky. I thought winning would feel better, I said quietly. She smiled. It does, she replied. Eventually. When you stop trying to prove you're worthy of love, because you already are. She passed away 2 years later. I held her hand until the last breath. We buried her in a garden filled with sunlight and lavender. And on her gravestone, I carved the words, built different, loved perfectly. And beneath it, I added mine, Ezra Monroe, her son forever. 2 years had passed since Miriam's funeral, and my world had become quieter, not empty, just still. Grief had a way of dulling even the brightest moments. But I was still building, still dreaming, because that's what she would have wanted. One autumn morning, I received an invitation. It was from St. Agnes Orphanage, the very place I was abandoned. They were holding a fundraiser to expand their neonatal care unit and adoptive placement services. They'd heard about my story. They wanted me to speak. At first, I hesitated. Returning there standing where my story almost ended felt like reopening a scar. But then I remembered the boy in the sack. The child who never got to cry out loud. The one who became me. So I said yes. When I arrived, the building was older, but still warm. Inside, laughter echoed down the halls. Children peeked out from behind door frames. Staff moved with compassion and purpose. I was led to the stage in the small auditorium. As I stood there, looking out at the crowd, I spotted someone in the front row holding a prosthetic limb, one of my early models. I cleared my throat. "My name is Ezra Monroe," I began. "And this place changed my life because this is where my second chance began." I told them everything. The cold night, the woman with the blue scarf, the pain, the climb, the betrayals, and the love that saved me. And when I finished, I looked toward the back where a little boy with leg braces stared up at me with wide, wondering eyes. That was why I was there. After the event, I approached the director. "What's your biggest need right now?" I asked. She hesitated. "We have the space, but not the equipment or staff for long-term medical care. Children like he used to be. Ezra, they fall through the cracks." I looked around one last time. "Not anymore," I said. Within a month, we began construction on the Miriam Center for Pediatric Healing and Hope, a state-of-the-art facility on the orphanage grounds, fully funded, not to honor my past, but to rewrite someone else's future. I've learned that your beginning doesn't define your ending. You can be thrown away and still find your worth. You can be betrayed and still choose peace. You can be unwanted and still love others fiercely. My journey began in a burlap sack outside an orphanage. But it ends here, in a home filled with light, in a center where every child is seen, in the legacy of a woman who picked me up when no one else would. My name is Ezra Monroe. I was abandoned. I was mocked. I was counted out. But I was built different. And I was loved perfectly. And now I get to be that for others. Not because I have to, but because I can. Please like and subscribe for more stories.